Here's a song that I work in the, I do some programming at IAA. And so I do a K through 2 program because I've been trying to make the connections with the kids and make sure kids are ready for music programming, so that they aren't kind of filtered out when they get to the higher grades and are offered musical instruments. So this is our theme song at IAA for my program. You sing a song, and I sing a song, and we'll sing a song together. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song in warm or wintry weather. So that's it. And every kid at that school, if you start singing that song, they just burst into song singing it because that's their song. Now, there was one event there that I think of fondly where they brought in a professional harmonica player, and he did a little demonstration, and then he handed out a harmonica to every kid in the entire school. And for the next month or so, you could not walk anywhere in the Old North End without hearing one of those harmonicas being played, for better or worse, from some porch or some balcony. I wish I had that kind of budget. Now, I gave you a little bit of that music, and I'm happy to keep playing if you like. Is that something that you want? Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Who's going to be the one to cut me off when it's time to be done?
that'll be Patrick.
Okay. And there's my remember the meeting alert.
Did you ever play in a klezmer band? You can't hear me.
I can certainly hear you. And so I do. I play klezmer with Zoe Christensen, who is lives in Central Vermont, and she is one of the most outstanding clarinet players.
Oh wow!
Around. So I really enjoy playing music with her. And I did play with the brass balagan, and a lot of the repertoire of that band was derived from Eastern European Jewish traditional music.
Right. Were you here when the Black Sea Quartet was here?
Yeah, and David Simmons has been a really, really big influence on me and on obviously Burlington in general. But his music is something that's really special.
In 2004, I had a wedding on the Spirit of Easton Allen, and that's who I hired to play for my wedding. So
Good
it was
choice.
great.
Good
It was a
choice.
great choice.
Thank you very much, Ryan. We are at time now. We're going to start
Super.
our Ward 2 and 3 NPA meeting. And we'll start off the meeting. Our agenda, for those who haven't looked at it, was posted on several places, including the city's website and Front Porch Forum. I don't have, is there a copy available posted on Zoom anywhere? No, doesn't look like it. But we're going to start off with announcements. Announcements for events or things of that nature, and then we'll go to public forum after this. So if you're public and you have a forum, wait for after the announcements.
So I have a couple of announcements, Patrick. Is this a good time?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm Megan Humphrey, and I run Hands, which is an organization, and we get food to seniors. So this week we have a big online auction happening, and we had a concert last Sunday night, which was Dwight and Nicole and Kat Wright and Brett Hughes, which is also still available to see until Sunday evening. And we have an online auction with all kinds of art and music related items. And I think the most unique thing is that we've lined up a lot of folks who are willing to donate their voices to do personalized video greetings. So we have all kinds of musicians, people from Myra Flynn, Lowell Thompson, lots of others. And then we also have Dr. Mark Levine, who's been giving us all the news about the pandemic for the last year. He's on there. And Charlie Nardozzi will sing to your plants. So there are a lot of fun different people like that are lined up. So I'm trying to get the word out about that. And that's at handsvt.org. And that's got all the information for that. And also there is a film premiere on April 15th coming up about the noise impacts of the F-35s. So I just wanted to remind people that that's coming up. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public announcements?
I could make one.
AJ.
So, as many or some of you may know, at 1222 North, we've been experimenting with a bunch of different technologies, primarily around trying to make buildings safe for COVID. We have set up a temporary pod for a outdoor co-working space that people can meet other folks and whatnot, just trying an experiment that's been done in Boston and it's been done in New York City. So that will be temporarily in the alley on 12 North Street. If people are interested, there's a company out of New York called SolarFi that is actually the one who is built it, promoting it, and it's kind of their technology. So we're just experimenting with it here for anybody who's interested in those kind of things. Place to safely meet people that's outside, or I mean that's inside, but is bigger space than a coffee shop or something for just a couple people.
Great, thank you very much, AJ. Anybody else have a public announcement? Then I guess we'll move right along, and if we come up with one later, we'll revisit it. But then we have a public forum, which will be a 2-minute setting. We're going to not strictly impose upon people, but please remember there are probably a lot of people that would rather be outside than listening. So keep it short and sweet. Is there anybody? Wow, lots of public and no forum. Well, again, we can come back and revisit it if more people show up. I guess we'll move right along with that in mind to next item on the agenda, which is Fair Housing Month. Vermont Legal Aid, Rachel Batterson, is she here yet? I don't see her.
Oh, actually, Patrick, Rachel isn't able to make it tonight, so it'll just be
Oh,
myself and Todd.
I'm sorry, there was probably an email that I did not read. Well, are you prepared then, Jess?
I sure am. Thank you. And before I put on my work hat and take off my community hat, I also just want to really thank Brian Perkins for the music tonight. It was a great way to get started. And I want to thank the community dinner folks and Mulu for an amazing meal. I don't know if anyone who's here on the Zoom had the delicious injera that was served out of the to go out of the Old North End Community Center, but it was delicious. And I think Janet's, is Janet here actually? I wonder if she wants to give a little report on it. No, I think she said that there were, yeah, about 85 meals. Is that right, Patrick?
Yep.
And so we're looking forward to more community meals, indoors, outdoors, to go any way possible. So it was really great. So now I'll take off my community hat and put on my work hat. I'm Jess Hyman, and I'm here representing the Fair Housing Project of CVOEO. And I'm here today with Todd Rawlings from CEDO. And we're here to tell you about Fair Housing Month. So April is Fair Housing Month, and it's a time to celebrate the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968. Which enshrined into law important protections against discrimination and harassment in housing. And it also called for redressing historical and systemic segregation. And so the Fair Housing Act, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, provides a lot of protections. On the federal level, fair housing law protects against discrimination and harassment based on race, color, national origin, religion, family status, and family status is often defined as having minor children, sex, and disability. And then states have the ability to add extra protections into law. And here in Vermont, we've added quite a few. So we've added additional protections based on age, marital status, and that can be either being married or not being married, sexual orientation, gender identity, a receipt of public assistance. And so that's, you could include Section 8 or 3 Squares Vermont or Reach Up or any other type of public assistance. And also being a victim of abuse, sexual assault, or stalking. And we also have a really fun and kind of wonky protection on the books, which is a protection against discrimination in development planning based on income of people who would live there. So essentially it's an anti-NIMBYism law, which is pretty cool. So Fair Housing Month is really a time to celebrate these protections that are enshrined in law. And it's also a time to recognize that just because these things are illegal doesn't mean they don't happen. And we see discrimination of all types happening all over. And people are excluded from safe, accessible, and stable and affordable housing because of this discrimination, which is often institutional and systemic. Because as we know, where we live really matters. And where our homes are determine where we go to work, determine where our kids go to school, how easy it is to access markets, recreational opportunities, and other neighborhood amenities. And it has a big impact on our communities and our health. And I think if there's anything that this past year of the pandemic has taught us is that housing is healthcare. And if you don't have access to safe and stable housing, then you don't have a safe place to be when you're told to stay home and stay safe. So, we know that there's, Vermont has had a crisis in housing before the pandemic, and it's only been exacerbated by that. And especially for Black and Indigenous people of color, for LGBTQ folks and others who are traditionally subject to discrimination, things have been even worse over the last year. And so now is the time to really step up and speak out against all this inequity in housing and to make sure that everyone can have a safe and stable and secure and affordable place to live. So that's what we're celebrating for Fair Housing Month. And I'm going to, in a moment or two, just tell you a little bit about ways that you can get involved. But first, I'd love to turn it over to Todd from CEDO to make a very important announcement on behalf of the city.
Thanks very much, Jess. I'm very happy to be here today on behalf of the mayor to read a proclamation naming April as Fair Housing Month for the city of Burlington. This is something that the mayor does every year, although we've made a couple of important updates thanks to the work of CVOEO and Vermont Legal Aid. So with that, I would like to read this same proclamation that the mayor will be reading on April the 12th at the City Council meeting. Whereas the Federal Fair Housing Act was passed in April 1968 in order to take steps towards eliminating discrimination in housing opportunities based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, family status, and disability, and to further housing choices for all Americans. And whereas Vermont's Fair Housing Act strengthened the protections of the Federal Fair Housing Act to include age, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, receipt of public assistance, and people who have experienced abuse, sexual assault, or stalking as protected classes. And whereas the month of April is now celebrated as Fair Housing Month, both nationally and locally. And whereas the ongoing struggle for dignity and opportunity for all in housing is not the exclusive province of the federal or state governments, and vigorous local efforts to combat discrimination and expand housing opportunities can be extremely effective. And whereas Burlingtonians need safe, decent, affordable, and inclusive housing, and illegal barriers to equal opportunity in housing, no matter how subtle, diminish the rights of all. And whereas the city of Burlington supports the efforts of fair housing organizations, concerned citizens, and the housing industry to create broader housing choice in Burlington and Chittenden County, and to promote understanding of the Fair Housing Act. And whereas inclusive, welcoming, and affordable communities promote diversity and a climate conducive to equitable and vibrant development. And whereas Burlington submitted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development an assessment of fair housing, which was subsequently approved by the department in December of 2017. And whereas Burlington continues to work to expand housing opportunities and the availability and affordability of housing in Burlington through policy reform, including the development over the last 2 years of new policies to implement energy efficiency standards in rental housing, eliminate requirements around parking standards in order to reduce a major driver of the cost of housing, and align the city's land use policies with its climate goals, and to restore and increase the dedicated funding to the city's Housing Trust Fund, among others. Whereas the coronavirus has put additional strain on the city's housing and support services and exacerbated existing inequities for people whom fair housing laws seek to protect from discrimination, particularly people of color. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Weinberger, Mayor of the City of Burlington, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2021 to be Fair Housing Month, and do hereby urge all individuals, agencies, and institutions, public and private, to contribute to the observance by continuing our efforts to eliminate housing discrimination in our communities and increase housing opportunities for all.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Good, strong message and commitment from the city, which is absolutely tremendous. And although April, we celebrate Fair Housing Month in April, our right to fair housing is year round and every day and every minute of every day. So thank you. So there are lots of great activities happening this month that I want to tell everyone about. So the Fair Housing Project of CVOEO, in partnership with CEDO, with Vermont Legal Aid, the Human Rights Commission, the State Department of of Housing and Community Development, and other partners, including the Department of Libraries and the Vermont Library Association, have put together a whole, and a slew of other partners as well, have put together a whole series of engaging and informative and fun events. There are workshops, webinars, book discussion groups, film discussion groups, and also an amazing community art project that anyone can join in. All the events are free, and they're either available online or things that you can do at home. So I would encourage everyone to go to fairhousingmonthvt.org. That's fairhousingmonthvt.org, and check out the calendar of events. There's tons of ways to get involved. And one thing that I personally really love about these events is that they're not only informational and help everyone understand that discrimination is still happening all over the state and all over the country, and that we need to be aware of our rights and know what to do if we experience or see discrimination. And it's also an opportunity to celebrate what's working, to celebrate inclusive and diverse communities and the connections that we all have to each other, and how our communities are stronger because of our fair housing rights. So please join us for these activities. And if you are experiencing discrimination in housing, there are a number of things you can do. So you can, number one, you can call us at the Fair Housing Project of CVOEO. And the easiest way to do that is to call our Vermont Tenants Hotline at 802-864-0099, or call the Fair Housing Project at 802-660-3456, or go to our website at cvoeo.org. And also contact Vermont Legal Aid or the Vermont Human Rights Commission. And we're all three organizations are here for you to support you in your quest for fair, safe, stable, and affordable housing. So please join us for Fair Housing Month, and contact us if you have any questions. And Todd and I are happy to take questions if anyone has any questions or comments.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Before we take questions, there's a few new features in this month's meeting. And if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, we have a selection of polling, which we will do later. But we also have a Q&A section, and that Q&A section are for people who do not wish to speak at the Zoom meeting, but would like to ask a question. We can either facilitate that question to be answered in the Q&A section, or if the appropriate individual is available to give you a video response, that could be done as well. Those are, I think maybe they were there before, but we haven't utilized them, but hopefully we are now understanding the platform much better. But feel free to also look at the polling menu prior to us getting there, and that probably would help facilitate it.
I just want to say, with the Q&A, you just have to be an attendee to use the Q&A function if you want to write a note or something like that. So just, you're a panelist, for everyone on the screen is a panelist right now. But I believe you can make yourself an attendee.
Okie dokie, thank you. So questions for Jess about fair housing? Tony.
Yeah, hi. Tony Reddington. I live in Ward 3, and I've got more of a comment than I think that the Fair Housing Month is important, and it does get us to focus our attention on housing. In looking at housing in our area, that is the Old North End and King Maple, it's pretty clear that our particular two wards, Wards 2 and 3, you might throw the whole entire city of Winooski into that same basket. It's sort of like the Povertyville of Vermont. It's the old economic Ethan and Ira Allen stomping grounds, but we're 26% poor residents in Burlington. Those are mostly in our wards. 29% of the people who live in Winooski are below poverty incomes. That's about $500 a week for a family of 4. While the mayor claims, and I think we've heard from the Burlington Tenants Union, well, the mayor likes to claim that he's interested in housing. He was really a housing developer, and we were all hopeful that he would develop some housing that was affordable. But the city and the state do not provide 1 unit of 30% income max rents. Even our nonprofits, a quarter of the folks are paying more than 30% of their income, 6% paying more than half their income. The state and the city talk a good game, and sure, fair housing is important and providing complaints and process for needs, but the city doesn't ante up, the state doesn't ante up a penny for the one, like the feds do for 1 out of 5 renters in the state. Probably about over 20% of the renters here in Burlington and Winooski enjoy the federal assistance, Section 8 and so forth. They're happy. They have no housing problems. They're free to go, and if they have housing vouchers, they can move at their free will. But we have 1,000 people on the waiting list at the Housing Authority. That's equal to 10% of the residents of the city. And those folks are not living in the New North End primarily, or down at the Addition at the Gold Coast in the southern part of the city. We have a serious housing problem. We're hoping that the new administration at the federal level, which is committed to providing overall universal Section 8, basically vouchers, housing choice vouchers, will begin to have an impact on our community. But I think it's fair to say that our city has been sort of asleep at the switch now during the Weinberg administration, and I don't see anything changing in this current budget.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Kashka Orlo. I also live in the Old North End, and Kevin stopped by and told me to come to this meeting, and I'm actually kind of excited that I did. And the gentleman that just spoke, I was just listening to what he said, and I'm gonna have to agree with what he's saying, and also add something to that. That even the vouchers that people receive, which are the Section 8 vouchers, I think that what people don't realize, that even having those vouchers, it makes it almost impossible for people to find housing in around the city of Burlington, or even, you know, in Essex Junction, Essex, the Chittenden County area, because the voucher does not cover the rents that are the rent prices that are currently being offered as, you know, rental units. It's just impossible. So I think there's a huge crisis, and I see so many families that have no home with children. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, my phone's on low battery. With children that are, you know, homeless and attending school while homeless. So this has been an ongoing issue.
Thank you. Do we have any questions though for the people who have here to represent fair housing? Jess, there are a lot of feelings about it, but that's more public comment. Any questions that Jess might be able to help answer or provide clarity to?
And just in response to those comments, I would totally agree. We do not have enough housing, and the housing that's here is not affordable for the majority of people. So that's I totally agree with that. But I think Todd had a comment.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Jess
addition.
or Todd. I didn't mean to leave you out.
Yeah.
Sure, it's actually a question for you, Jess, or sort of a request. Do you think you could help us with a couple of examples of what housing discrimination might look like, both as a renter and as a potential home buyer?
Oh, most definitely, sure.
Could I add one thing to that? Can you
course.
also illustrate in those examples how people like landlords get around those and make it feel like they're doing their job and not discriminating, and actually are.
Sure. So a very common form of discrimination happens when people are applying for apartments. So for example, if someone, a family with kids is looking at an apartment to rent, and they might call the person up and say, hey, well, and this is colored a bit by the fact because COVID has made it really difficult to find and view apartments, but we'll talk pre-COVID days for now. Someone calls a landlord and says, "Hey, I've seen this apartment listed, this 2-bedroom apartment. I'm really interested. I would love to come look at it." The landlord says, "Sure. We're doing an open house on Sunday. Come on over to take a look." The person shows up at the apartment with their 3 children and walks in, and the landlord says, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry. We just rented the apartment." And the person leaves, and then the next person walks in, maybe a married couple walks in, and the landlord says, "Come on in, go take a look, take a look." So that's one example, an example of what we hear of a lot of landlords making choices about who they will open up their apartments to or accept applications from. Other examples are things like if several people apply for an apartment, the landlord might ask for a credit check for some people based on what they look like and what assumptions they might have about them, and not ask for a credit check for others. And how, Patrick, you asked how landlords can get around it. So for an example of that could be if just what I mentioned, if a landlord is asking for a credit check from one person, but not another. When there's a particularly tight housing market like we have now, it's often difficult to investigate and prove housing discrimination. So one of the wonderful things that Vermont Legal Aid does is they do investigations. So if they get a report of for example, a particular landlord who will not rent to people of color, what they might do is they might send out testers. So they would send out people who have a similar income, maybe similar family size, but different colored skin to apply for various apartments, and they would see how each person might be treated. In a tight housing market like we have now, apartments are rented so quickly that they don't have the opportunity to do that testing. And so a landlord could be making discriminatory decisions that can never be checked on. So those are some examples on the renting side. On the home buying or purchasing side, ways that discrimination has showed up is in I would say realtors could steer people towards different neighborhoods. So someone might, a realtor could make assumptions about a person based on what they look like or their ability or disability, and say, "Oh, well, you don't want to look for a house over here. You would be more comfortable in this area." So steering people towards different neighborhoods. Or because of how someone is choosing to pay for their home, they could discriminate against them in that way. And so we see discrimination when people are trying to rent housing, when people are trying to purchase housing, in financing as well. And it's important to note that illegal housing discrimination isn't just in the decision-making process about people accessing homes, but can happen when people are living in their homes as well. So harassment in housing is something that we hear of quite a bit. Sometimes it's, and quite often it's neighbor-on-neighbor harassment, where there'll be either racial harassment or harassment based on where someone's from or their family size or their ability. So those are just a few examples. Todd.
Thank you, Jess. Just to add a couple of sort of anecdotal examples. The first is around renting. We have had reports that there are landlords who wish to avoid renting to Section 8 voucher holders, and will price the unit at just a few dollars more than the maximum that the housing authority will allow. So again, these are anecdotal reports, but we have heard them quite a bit. The other, on the home buyer side, the Federal Reserve had a recent webinar where there was extensive conversation about this sort of systemic racism, particularly in the appraisal process, that homes that are largely occupied by BIPOC families are consistently appraised at a significantly lower amount than the actual market value, which of course can be a serious impediment to actually, in the purchasing process. So I think it happens at the individual level, but it's also a systemic issue that is, that is something that we can look at in Burlington, but is also bigger than Burlington.
Great. Any last questions before we have to move on to our next agenda item? Looks like we're good. Thank you, Todd, very much. And Jess, as always, thank you. And then the mayor will give his housing speech when? Did you say earlier? Just to reiterate it.
Sure. Yeah, he'll be reading the proclamation at the City Council meeting on April the 12th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And next up, we have an update on our beautiful parks and the ever-changing world in which they live in. And wow, look at all these parks people just popping up. They're like daffodils. So I'll let which one of you is going to represent?
I can do the intro.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a very nice comparing us to daffodils. Thank you. That's lovely. Springtime in the parks, our favorite season. My name is Dianna Wood. I could not change my name for some reason on the Zoom. I'm the marketing outreach manager for the City of Burlington Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Division. I'm here with our entire planning team and our director, Cindy White. Our planning team, I can introduce them. We have Sophie Salve. She is the comprehensive planner. John Adams Collett and Max Madalinsky are two project managers within the department. So we have like a short presentation to go over some of the stuff that's happening in the parks, highlighting some of the regional parks, things that are happening. You'll notice our backgrounds. Some of you may have seen them from the Perkins Pier public meeting, and there's another one coming up you'll hear about, and also some of the neighborhood parks in your area. And I can do a quick shout out to our rec staff that is currently planning Kids Week that's happening in May. And also you may have heard July 3rd is on. So stay tuned for details for that. I'll turn it over to Sophie right now. And we do have a presentation to share. Hopefully she can pull that up.
I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it'll just pop up. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation? Awesome, thank you. So as Dianna said, I'm Sophie Sauve. I'm the Parks Comprehensive Planner, and we're going to sort of tag team the presentation to give you an overview of what's going on in and around your ward. But just keep in mind, it's not the entire list, but we did want to kind of give you a flavor of what's going on and also alert you to a few public meetings that everyone is invited to next month. And just so you know, we like to use icons to kind of quickly communicate the stage at which a project is at in terms of planning.
When you see a light bulb, it means we're in the phase of collecting ideas and thoughts and feedback about a project. When there's a pencil, it means people behind the scenes are hard at work at designing either a park or a master plan during that process. There might be also opportunities to collect ideas throughout that piece, but it means it might be off the table soon. And then the check mark is for projects completed, because who doesn't love a task list with check marks to feel like there's been a milestone reached. So I'll pass it to John.
Thanks, Sophie. We have some minor repairs coming up at the skate park. The coping at the top of the bowls will be replaced. Our maintenance crews right now are shopping for what turns out to be a very specialized piece of metal that goes at the top of the skate park.
Battery Park, we don't have an active project right now, but in the next fiscal year, we'll be looking at engaging the community in a master planning process for Battery Park. And from there, we'll have several projects that'll emerge from there, notably the Kane Overlook and determining the future for Chief Greylock, and then more implementation phases down the road.
The bike path or the Burlington Greenway, especially in your wards, all the pieces have come together to achieve the long-standing goal of moving the bike path entirely to the west of the tracks in the Maple to College Street corridor, and construction started on that actually last fall. Underground work started, and coming up shortly, probably within a few weeks, work will start on the College to King section, and then following that, King to Maple. And then eventually we will realign La Valley Lane, which accesses the wastewater treatment plant and the Vermont rail yard. And all of that work is, of course, because passenger rail via Amtrak is coming to town. So we're excited about that project. There is a detour around that area. It will be a bit of a cluster this summer. Also, Oak Ledge Park, that's the last section of bike path to get built. We are about ready to go out to bid for that and hope to start construction in June or July, lasting for the rest of the season. And we will likely compartmentalize that or sequence it in such a way to keep access to places like Blanchard Beach open for the heart of the swimming season.
Oops, sorry, went the wrong way. The boathouse, we are looking to do a scoping study to understand what is the best next step for the boathouse in terms of repairs or potential relocation. And based on that scoping study, we'll need significant funding to implement any of the recommendations that we find from a consultant that would be looking at the boathouse. And on the marina side of the boathouse, in the fall, we'll be installing gangway lift to help our crews remove the docking system on a yearly basis. And we also need to look at dredging with climate change and just significant changes in wind patterns, et cetera. There's a lot of sedimentation that's near the edge of the harbor, which when the lake is low, it's really hard for boats to navigate parts of the harbor. So dredging is in our future there. Oh, sorry. Callahan Park, we alluded to public meetings that are coming up. We're currently in the early stages of a master planning process at Callahan Park, which is the consultants we've hired are looking at basically site analysis. So what functions at the park, what facilities are great, which ones need some improvements, and just looking at the overall vision for the future of the park. And the public is invited to a public meeting on Thursday, May 13th at 7 through Zoom. there'll be information on our website and through social media very soon. We hope that everybody will come and provide input into how you best use the park, or what you love about the park, but also anything that you see is potentially missing from the park. And then from there, we have capital funds assigned to replace the playground there that is significantly aged, and then eventually the basketball courts, etc., through the master plan.
At Champlain Street Park, we have a design project, sort of a general redesign and replacement playground structure, and sort of revisioning what that park could potentially be. We sort of got kicked off with some public input way back before all of this COVID stuff happened, and with our budget reshuffling and reprioritization as part of COVID, we had to put the project temporarily on hold. But we're hoping to return to that effort this fall and really continue with the design and upgrades to Champlain Street Park.
City Hall Park, hopefully everybody has had a chance to enjoy the completed park in the fall, and soon the fountains will be back on and everybody can really enjoy it to its fullest. But I think for the most part, every time I've been to the park, there's people in there sitting, eating lunch, etc., in all sorts of weather. So hopefully that just continues throughout the summer.
At Letty Park, we have a lot of different projects, both in the short term and on the longer term horizon. Within the next month or so, the wooden staircase that goes down to the beach that is in pretty much has come to the end of its lifespan will be getting torn out and replaced with a new steel and wood staircase. That project should be done hopefully before mid-May. That's kind of my goal there on that one. And then upcoming projects, we have a lot of different master planning and then a lot of different things that the community has expressed interest in having at Letty that we'd like to cite through that master planning project and get those things all designed and hopefully underway with construction. Oh, and I also missed, we're also hoping by next fall to have finished up an ongoing project for us, which is the Letty Park Pause Place along the Greenway, and adding in another one of our fitness stations, similar to the things you've seen probably out at the Urban Reserve. And then way down the list there is, repaving and standard pavement improvements across Letty. At North Beach Campground, we also have been trying to take advantage of the campground being closed this past season and getting a number of projects into design and construction. We have a smaller project that will be breaking ground this coming spring to implement some of the first parts of the campground master plan, which we completed in 2017, or not the first parts, we did some, but anyway, putting in a turnaround road and relocating the campground's pump out. And then we, this past winter, had the very large wooden maintenance building there demolished. And we are now in the design phase for the pull-through campsites for RV campers to sort of pull in and have full hookups in that area. And included in that design is the sort of realignment and reconfiguration of the main roadway connecting all the way down to the beach. And the idea there is to basically separate out people who are just trying to get to the campground from people who are trying to get to the beach, and also to create a full formal sidewalk all the way connecting from by the high school all the way down to North Beach. And then looking down the line, it's hopefully to get the funds together to start implementing these design projects that we have underway now.
As I mentioned, Oakledge Park will be busy this summer with bike path construction coming up in the middle of the season. We've also got the upcoming phase 2 of the universally accessible playground. We're looking at next year for construction on that, and further down the road, we'll keep implementing the master plan recommendations for Oakledge, which will include redoing the entry and exit, formalizing the gravel parking lot, and improving stormwater management and I guess the entry road configuration.
As previously mentioned, Perkins Pier is undergoing a siting study at the moment, and we had our first public meeting last month to hear what works, what doesn't work at Perkins, and what recommendations individuals have for Perkins going forward. And our second public meeting, which will go over siting options for Perkins, will be held Tuesday, May 18th at 7 o'clock via Zoom. And all that information will also be on our website shortly. But we had a very well-attended meeting, considering I think a lot of people are zoomed out. We had over 100 people attend and had lots of questions that we fielded. And overall, we felt it was a really great exchange of information. And I think everybody had a good time. And then once the siting study is completed, we'll be looking at the playground, or part of the siting study is looking at the playground and amongst all the other amenities on the site. And we have capital funds allocated to replacing the playground there and looking at the parking lot and Lyman building as well. And in the fall, we'll be doing on the water side, replacing the moorings that are starting to fail on the water side.
And Roosevelt Park, infield reconstruction on the baseball field 2 years out, a redesign of the playground at Little Rosie in fiscal year 25, and then a replacement of that playground in fiscal year 26.
Just to round that out, we have several projects that are ongoing throughout the park systems that we're always trying to address, including playground compliance and playground safety. I'm sure you've seen our crews around putting kick mats under swings or replacing wood chips under playground structures to make sure that everything is safe. And at the same time, we're also looking at redesigning several restrooms across the board because they were all installed pretty much at the same time and need a bit of attention. We continue to work on bike rack expansion throughout our park systems and also improving or upgrading our signage and wayfinding throughout the park systems, which has been completed in some parks and some others not yet, but it's always on our to-do list for sure. And that's all we had. So I think we're ready for questions if we still have time.
Yeah, we are over time, but if we have quick questions, I'm going to try to ask people to reserve their comments, maybe very precise questions for these very knowledgeable park people.
Would you stop sharing screens so we can see?
Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Barbara will be the first question.
A couple of questions regarding City Hall Park. One is, I just walked by there this afternoon, and what I think are being called the rain gardens, are they done? I mean, is there going to be something colorful in them or what have you? And my second question regarding the park is, I don't understand why the farmers market can't come back this year.
I'll answer the rain garden question. The plants, I'm not sure if you were there in the fall, but there are several plants that are there and they'll be coming back now that spring is around, well, is here basically. They'll be back and it will provide a lot of color for the park. Sorry, Cindy, can you field the farmers market?
Sure, yeah, I would just say that the plant that was designed for color throughout the 3 seasons, spring, summer, and fall. I know my first daffodils just bloomed today, so I think we still have flowers coming. And then as far as the farmers market, we would have loved to have had them back this year. The farmers market chose to stay on Pine Street because they didn't know what the COVID restrictions would be. And as you know, there's a lot more room down on Pine Street than there is up at City Hall Park. And knowing that, they just made the decision that they wanted to stay down at Pine Street one more year, not knowing what the restrictions would be in place. So that was the farmers market decision to do that. And, understood. I can certainly empathize with them of not knowing what was coming and making that decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a couple, I don't know which, either Larissa or Kevin, who had their hand up first. Larissa?
Hi, hello, thank you. That was a great presentation. Just a question on Pomeroy Park. You didn't cover that. Are there any plans for any work there?
I don't think Pomeroy has one. The playground is in good shape. And so I don't think there's anything coming up there. I know we recently, within the past, I think 2 years, resealed the court. One of the things, like, frankly, one of the things that's a real challenge there is the playground. And we've not been able to come through a consensus. I know Jesse gave it a try and I've given it a try as far as the playground and the fence there. Right now, people unfortunately treat it as a dog park when it is very much not a dog park. It's a children's playground, and dogs in there put children at risk, whether the dogs are in there when the children are there or not, because they leave feces behind, they leave urine behind. But one of the reasons it's so attractive as a dog park is because it's completely fenced. And we have no dog signs on all of the gates that lead into that. So one of the things that we've been advocating for is removing that fence that runs parallel to North Street so that it doesn't serve so well as a dog park. But it's hard because I think some of the parents with younger children like the fence there because they feel safer with their children. So it is definitely a quandary in Pomeroy and the dogs. So any of you that have dogs or know people that have dogs, please ask them, please don't go into the playground, even when the kids are not there.
Yeah, thank you for that update. It's still a problem, and I know a lot of folks keep mentioning it, but it doesn't seem to be fixing itself.
Okay, Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, so just a broad question for really any of you. My impression of one of the byproducts of COVID is increased costs of various like building materials. Wood, nails, you name it. So I'm curious, just generally, how has that impacted, all these remodeling plans, if at all? Just curious.
I'll jump in there. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen that and been hearing a lot of that from contractors and a number of our colleagues who are in the design field. Everybody is reporting that material costs are up, and we're seeing it slightly reflected in bids. I guess the one thing we all are also seeing, though, is, I mean, it's still a little hard to tell at this point because we're kind of coming, hopefully, towards the end of this whole COVID experiment. But it does seem like some contractors are more hungry. Maybe there's less work out there generally. But it's really hard to tell where things are going to go with federal funding coming down the line. What happens at that level, and other municipalities, other places starting to have more work could start to really affect the prices we're seeing. But so we've definitely seen some of that increased prices on materials and things like that. But some of it's being offset by people needing work too.
Gotcha. Cool. So like maybe their margins are shrinking a little bit to accommodate. It's cool to hear. Thank you.
All right. Great. Any other very quick questions as we're over time, and these fine people, I'm sure, don't want to be on another Zoom meeting any longer than possible. Looks like that would round it up. Thank you very kindly for giving us that parks update. It is great to see all the wonderful parks that we have, their future and past, all in one. Thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone.
Right, we are going to move along to another portion of our agenda, which is our grant allocation, or at least the discussion of the grants. We'll see how everything goes. I see some of the grant applicants present. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, other steering committee members, but we're going to go through quickly and have the applicants give a quick synopsis of their grants, the amount of the grants, and how it will benefit Ward 2 and 3 specifically, and larger Burlington community. And I don't have a, would anybody like to jump in first? I'm not going to call people as I'm trying to read names and then look at the screen. Oh, we got Mr. Brian Perkins. Oh, Haiti. Oh, he left. Sorry, Brian. He raised his hand, and that's, Robert's rules.
Robert's Rules of Order. I like that. So I am using my fiance's laptop through Zoom. This is Haiti Miranda. She's in the back. Haiti works through UVM, and if you're familiar with Haiti, you might have seen me a couple times. I used to work for University Event Services at UVM for about 4 years, and I provided wonderful service assisting with event setups, specifically through fall, spring festival events. So I definitely do miss a lot of the the live events, and as everyone else, just yearning for that togetherness and getting back together in some type of entertainment group setting. And with my experience living in Vermont, I've been living in Vermont for the last 7 years. I moved here from Florida. This is just a big synopsis of who I am. I moved from Florida, originally from the island of Jamaica, moved from Florida to Vermont around 2014, and specifically to work for the University of Vermont as a production specialist. I used that time to really get to know a lot about Vermont, about UVM, but I did not know a lot about Vermont. So my experiences after the first 2 years, I got to really learn a lot about my community, I guess from the outside in. I think I went the furthest out. I learned about like Brattleboro, Rutland, like unique names. I literally found where Jamaica, Vermont was, and I wanted to learn about that backwards. So that speaks to the type of energy or energetic aspirations I have, just to kind of get to know about culture or different spaces where everyone lives. So speaking of culture, I have gotten to know about the diverse cultures, not only, in the great state of Vermont individually, from different people from different parts of the world that find their way here. And the statement is that, most people who are from Vermont are not really from Vermont. They just followed a friend and they decided to stay. So just going from that learned experience of just meeting everyone, I got to know a lot of community influencers. I got to work with a lot of organizations or group of individuals. I just like the networking here, one. So the word community means something specifically to me because of my culture as well. I'm Jamaican. And finding Vermont to be a nostalgic place that reminds me in the summer where I lived or grew up in Jamaica was the first thing. Second, finding out that there was a Vermont reggae festival here, and then Vermont really loves reggae music was the second thing. And third, being able to live for the past 7 years right across from Battery Park in Ward 3 of the whole North End has been just a production person's, to me, a production person's treat. I was able to witness different types of musical setups and performances. And I realized that that all came out of this one space that's located. It's literally like realizing that the pride of coming from somewhere is because you've stayed long enough to see the purpose of it and just the helpfulness of it. So being beside Battery Park and the amphitheater has been something really special to me. And being a part of Ward 3 and being active within my community in several ways, I wanted to represent a little bit more as we open up into social gatherings. And I wanted to represent in a responsible way. So is this a part where I jump into the budget and stuff like that? I'll go ahead and share the screen really quickly, if I'm allowed to, through the host, if that's okay. And I can
give me 1 second.
No problem.
I'll make you. Yeah.
And as I do that, I'll talk. So here we go. Do a quick screen that keeps onto the presentation. Sorry about that quick delay. And here we go. All right, is everyone seeing that? Or I probably should put it in a slide format, presentation format, I should say. But are you able to see so far? Okay, so a quick impromptu I wanted to put into full screen mode, but you know how nerves get when you get into the moment, so bear with me if you really need me to go into anything. But on my time here in Vermont, I was able to interact in a lot of ways that extended my professional development as a production specialist. I worked with nonprofits. I also am a multidisciplinary artist through the Clemens Family Farm out of Charlotte, and they allow me to represent them by being the artist that I am. And I'm very, just blown away by that opportunity because I never had it in another state. So being a part of the Vermont community, especially the Old North End, I wanted to give back in a way that amplified the beautification of Battery Park. So the topic for I call it the totem. So I didn't catch the original name of the wooden statue that is actually growing apart right now, I guess. Yeah.
Chief Greylock.
Chief Greylock statue. And I've been watching its deterioration. So I wanted to take a moment as a community person that actually is a storyteller. I do a lot of podcasting as well. And I have been taking a lot of pictures just for my own, just to see how the progression of it is. And I wanted to use just a day to kind of amplify the history of it in a way that represents the different cultures that come together. And culture has is a big spectrum, and a lot of people are included in the multiculturalism that is Vermont. And I do want to connect outside of the community that is the Old North End and reach out into Winooski and bring that connection, those two communities that really would support and have been supporting each other in ways that they call it Refugee Day, but I like to call it New American Day, has been hosted in Battery Park. The Black Perspective protest has been hosted in Battery Park, and I've had inclusion helping in reference to the sound, the PA systems being helpful. So the real reason and the description for this event, the Vermont Multicultural Festival aims to create a space for enjoyment and connection. This family-friendly, socially distant event will feature creative, interactive, and educational musical performances. Performers will represent the diverse musical genres present in the greater Burlington community, reflecting vast cultural roots. The Vermont Multicultural Festival will be a half-day event, tentatively occurring on Saturday, August 7th. This event will offer a multi-genre melodic bridge connecting local creatives and performing groups within the Old North End to the greater Vermont community, while concurrently offering the stewardship of beautification of Battery Park. Participants of this open air networking event will also be utilizing the creative resources of Burlington's newest multimedia collaborative machine, Dianna Studios. So this is the multimedia person in charge of Dianna Studios. Dianna Studios is literally the musical hub that I operate out of. I do a lot of podcasting and a lot of in-person production, voiceover services, and I've been helping a lot of individuals in the community. I don't mean to name drop, but recently for his run for mayor, Ali Deng reached out to me to do a voiceover for his campaign, and I was elated to help him with that service as a community member. So I want to extend that service through Dianna Studios throughout the community continually, and I want to use this event as far as an introduction to my services as a business owner, community involved person within the Old North End. All right, so let's look at a tentative itinerary. I hope everyone is, I'll do a question and answer at the end of this, and I'm one slide away from the question and answer. The tentative schedule at 12 p.m. would be an introduction and welcome, where I introduce the purpose and the meaning of what this event is about. Around 1 p.m. I'll do a community networking and tabling. There will be specific distance tabling representing groups or organizations within the community that'll be curating, that reflects and gives information about the diverseness and the multiculturalism, and that will really be individuals who've been living in the Old North End that have been having a major impact on, especially during COVID. So 2:30, message from and the community highlights would be additional information highlighting the community. That's kind of like bringing back the information from each network, community networking table, and then doing a highlight session for that so everybody knows where to get more information. And the 3:30 specific area would be for the stewardship and beautification. We'll break off into a small beautification project where we'll be just collecting and using recyclable and just teaching about recycling. A lot of people who are new to Vermont, myself included, who weren't used to the recycling process just because we didn't grow up in that culture. I would want to introduce the culture of being efficient and being aware of recycling. And around 4:30, the music education workshops. There'll be unique tools and creative engagement items that I do have as a part of Jenna Studios that I like to use as music education workshops. It's a thing that I teach within Jenna Studios as far as an educator, and what I provide as a multidisciplinary artist, a part of the Clemens Family Farm, and I'll be going into that around 4:30. 6 p.m. we'll be having musical performances from a few highlighted community and multicultural community, multi-genre community members. And at 7:30, we'll have a headline performer. And for the first multicultural festival, I would like to headline a member of Africa to Vermont. His name is Jillib, and he's recently been doing some very hard work within the community, representing not only himself, but as a new American, representing the positive hope of progression post-pandemic. So he has a song called I'm a Soul Survivor, and we worked on it. Our community worked on it. Shout out to David Cooper, who has a studio North Ave all the way down. I don't want to give out personal information, but as far as the community networking of musicians, creative artists, I just wanted to have something to bridge everyone together as often as possible. The first one, that's why I wanted help for it. The first one does need a startup budget, so that's why I created a budget plan for that. So the budget list that you see right here, I'll read through it. That interactive device that I'm using as a workshop, it's called the Playtronica. It's called a Touch Me device, but really it is a how would you explain this?
As a circuit board.
It is a circuit board that uses electricity to anything that conducts electricity to send back notes that could be transcribed through MIDI. A lot of people who are confused about this right now, who the tech stuff kind of gets over the head, and a lot of people who are familiar with production, you kind of get where I'm going. This interactive device is going to be a example of getting back together and just engaging. So I thought about the different ways of engaging. Of course, touch is very sensitive around this time post-pandemic, but anything that conducts electricity can include, fruits and stuff like that. So it's very engaging, and that's a part of the teaching tool that I'll be using through Jenna Studios, and it's one of the highlighted tools that I'll be using here at the Multicultural Festival. Promoting and advertising is there as well, because I'll be running some advertising, word of mouth and through social media, but I really want to make an impact and get it through 7 days. And a part of the cost includes the battery park permit for the quantity time of 2 hours per the price. We did some 6 hours. And Hades actually give me some help at the sideline, saying hi. So we have that there too. The headliner fee would be just my interaction with the organizations that support artists. Really use a lot of grant programs to help infuse artists during the pandemic, so that they can provide and give art and give their skills out as their expressiveness to the world. So I wanted to give them that incentive. Sound and PA is a part of the infrastructure of it, and it's something that we can talk about as well in reference to the budget. Lighting as well, because the lighting there could be adequate, but I also want to use it for decorative backgrounding, and that gives the total cost of $2,485.81, which I, of course, during the question and answers, I can go through a full breakdown of any questions that can refer to the budget and the overall purpose of the event. Thank you for listening. Oh, sorry, can't hear you. On mute.
Thank you, Kenroy. Appreciate it. That is probably one of the most elaborate NPA funding grants we've ever received, and quite detailed. And finally, man, amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Well, let me put my hand down. I had my icon thing up.
So there's a poll as well, which you're not, I just was reading the poll and you're not actually part of that poll, which I don't, that is an unfortunate thing.
That's, so there's two polls. There's the Ward
Oh,
2
did
budget
I
proposal
not
and
see the
Ward.
other poll?
We
Sorry.
can start both. It's okay. I just separated them by ward.
Oh,
I'm sorry. And I'm Ward 3. I don't
and
know.
I'm only, yeah. And I'm only seeing Ward 2. So somebody else, I hope somebody else has started the other poll.
Well, I think we were going to wait until after all the presentations to do the voting, but Liam,
I wanted
please
people
feel free to
at
jump in.
least, read it, and I could start them now, and they would be at least available. But I don't see the other poll.
We can only do one poll at a time. I can edit it to maybe make
Perfect. That's all. Yeah.
one thing.
Alrighty. Questions for Kenroy?
And I think would it be better to hold all the Q&As until the end, or is that, I thought that was the plan, just to get through the presentations first, that we had enough time.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Liam.
And thank you for your time and listening. And I'm grateful to be here.
Mr. Perkins, would you?
And just before,
Okay.
I just want to provide a little bit of context, just in case people aren't aware. In the meeting, each ward has $2,500 to spend in total, and we've already spent $300 per ward on interpretation services for the past election. So there's $4,400 left to allocate. So at the end of this, we'll take some Q&A and we'll vote with the polls.
Excellent. Thank you for doing my job. Ryan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming. So I'm a traditional musician. My name is Brian Perkins, and I'm involved in both the preserving the traditional music of our region and also in making sure that the next generation is able to enter into the musical life of their community and carry on those traditions. So I'm involved in both education and also performing music and researching music. So one of the projects that I've been doing over the last 5 years has been the Old North End Neighborhood Band, which is an ensemble consisting of teenagers and some kids slightly younger than teenagers who get together and learn about the cultural traditions of our neighborhood, and also and just learn how to interact and how to perform, learn some technical skills, and learn the context for the music, and then perform that music in public. So we've been going for about 5 years and had a bunch of different generations of kids coming through that program and done just dozens and dozens of performances throughout the region. And I could go more into that. But as with all of these programs, COVID just really wiped us out. We stopped doing in-person rehearsals and performances. And so we're looking for a way in which we can really get ourselves back up and running. Also, obviously, the community needs an expression of that we're coming through this pandemic and we're beginning to express ourselves in public. So my proposal is to have a series of 7 musical sessions targeting teenagers, which will happen in Roosevelt Park, right in the center of part of the Old North End, as an expression of young people getting together and, as they so much need to do, making music together and expressing the traditions of the community. There's been quite a bit of research done into the immigrant traditions which have enriched our neighborhood, both historical and currently. Obviously, the Old North End has been where immigrants and refugees have arrived over the last 200 years. And all of them have brought their musical traditions. And so we see the Irish, Scottish, and English traditions, as well as the French Canadian and the historical Jewish community of our neighborhood. All the musical traditions of these groups are all researched and expressed by this ensemble. Likewise, currently, new American groups are finding their home in the Old North End, bringing their families, their children, and their musical traditions. So we're trying to find a common place where young people can perform this mixed repertoire consisting of all of these different traditions in a way that is accessible and public, as a way of affirming the commitment of these kids to learning music, and also the community to seeing their traditions expressed. So 7 musical sessions as part of our weekly rehearsal program, which basically we ran weekly rehearsals throughout the last 5 years, and then stopped about a year ago. And so we would have those in Battery Park. The budget would consist of a instructor fee, which would basically cover myself and all of the promotion and organizing for that for those events. Also, the book, The Music of the Old North End, which we published a bunch of years ago, which consists of a repertoire of music drawn from those cultural traditions. And this would be made available to the young people participating. So it would be open to everybody, and we would use it as a way of building the momentum that we lost over the last year. I could elaborate. I'm sure I missed a bunch of details. This would it'd start on April 28th and wrap up on June 9th. So happy to answer any questions about this.
I think we're going to try to save the questions to the end.
Okay. Did I mention the grand total is $690?
Excellent. Thank you. I think that was on your application as well. Liam, anything else to add before we? I forgot Liam is supposed to be helping me facilitate this.
No problem. I was just going to mention that just in time constraints, if we could keep it to 5 minutes for each presentation, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I see AJ, I believe you have an application in.
Yes. So here, let me quick share my screen.
I can give you permission. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
There you are. You should be good.
All right. So can you see this presentation?
Yes.
All right. So this is, I'm just going to quick give an overview. This is for a presentation actually giving tomorrow for an e-forum with the Office of Vice President for Research up at UVM. But for the last couple of years, I've been working on a project called the IoT Conduit, which is really to bring smart city innovation to Burlington. And, my job is I'm very fortunate to get to work on IoT or Internet of Things projects all over the world, and thought that, Burlington could really use this. So what the IoT Conduit is it's a way to bring together community partners with industry partners, technology partners, academic partners, and professional partners, just really to start solving environmental problems by using technology to be able to baseline what our problem is, be able to quantify how we're doing, and to really help guide what we're doing. And I think, what's of most interest here to this group is that over the last couple of years, we've been building out a low power wireless sensor network. We've got radios right now up at the Rubenstein Lab by the Echo Center here at 1222 North. There'll be one going on the Cambrian Rise generator, really with the hope that we'll have waterfront coverage to get a better idea of what's going on with our water quality. It's really disappointing that how we find out that our beaches are closed, and there's got to be ways to figure out that. So what we've done is put up this network. We use we're partnered with the Things Network, which is a free network that allows people to get their data off the web and that we've been supporting UVM as they try to develop some blue-green algae sensors, you know, so that we can get real-time blue-green algae measurements, as well as water measurements that can tell whether the blooms are, it's conducive to the blooms or not. And, you know, so what we're asking for now is a grant to make a workshop where we can, oh, and by the way, April is Citizen Science Month. So what we're trying to do is, we've got this built. We've got a MOU that we'll announce over Earth Day with a number of partners that are supporting this network. Now what we need are the citizen scientists to come up with what they want to measure, whether it's traffic, whether it's more water quality, whether it's noise as the F-35s come over, whatever it is, right? How can we actually start quantifying these things with low-cost sensors and bring them onto a public network that's put together by the community and supported by the community to be able to inform our legislators and others on what's really going on. So we don't have to hear, yeah, we're gonna clean the lake again. Yeah, we're gonna do all these things, that we can start putting measurable metrics in place as citizen scientists, because we know that the city doesn't have the budget and the bandwidth necessarily to do this all themselves. So what we've proposed is $500 for an instructor, a guy, Eric Hall, you know, works DevOps at Dealer, who works on projects at Generator, to work with a couple interested parties here in the Old North End to figure out what we want to know and what we want the city to know that we can measure with sensors. And then the workshop is to really help folks, you know, either build them the sensors themselves, or that we support building the sensors, or elevate it to where we need to get a sensor commercially built, but all in the hope that we start getting more data from citizens onto this public network. So the 500, we asked for $1,000, $500 for the instructor fee, because you know, to build this up and to do actually quite a bit of technical support. And then the other 500 is for the actual sensors and whatnot. And kind of as an example, you know, this is kind of our reference device. So this guy, this little guy here, actually has a radio to send the data back. It can measure all kinds of different things like air quality, temperature, humidity. And this was an early prototype we made for a traffic sensor. You know, you stick this thing all in, you put a tube across the road, and the data just shows up on the web, right? Well, with a lot of help from the IoT conduit. But the point is to try to get the creativity and the frustration in our community out so that we can actually start solving these problems in a little more scientific way. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, HA. Alrighty. I'm gonna bring up the rest. Liam, do you have the other participants? The other applicants, sorry.
Oh, we have Aaron speaking about the Repair Cafe and
Yes.
Shelby talking about the mural project.
Thank you. And Aaron, I saw your hand go first if you want to go ahead.
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm gonna do a quick screen share, just show a couple photos, if I could be granted that.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Thank you. So, hi everyone, I'm Aaron Silber. I am the treasurer of Laboratory B, a community hackerspace in Ward 3. We're up on North Street. We're actually in AJ's building. Great presentation, AJ. So I'm treasurer of Laboratory B, but I'm also an organizing member of the Old North End Repair Cafe. And so we've done a couple of these events already, and I think it was very successful. Of course, a lot of our events were going on during the pandemic, so we went very outdoor. But I should start with what Repair Cafe is and what the Old North End Repair Cafe is. So Repair Cafe is an international organization, one that we're a part of, that is about promoting repair instead of disposal, fixing broken things. And the impact of that is really powerful. You know, the ability to keep something out of the waste stream has a big environmental impact, but also, you know, this is saving people money and not having to throw out household items and help them afford living in Burlington. And so it's also an opportunity for us to promote the ability of people to repair their own things, promote repair skills and interest in that, and open up people's minds towards, you know, that not everything has to be this, you know, consumer disposal society. So we're local, we're right on North Street, so we're very connected. It's very easy to get to our events on foot by public transportation. So lots of people come by bicycle. There's a lot of ways to get there. We do them on Saturdays. There's no cost for coming to a repair cafe. So you come by, you bring whatever it is. It's been bicycles, it's been household appliances, toasters, drills, a sleeping bag. I'll show a photo of that. So really it's about you come to us and let's figure it out. And it's completely free. We do ask for donations, but everyone's volunteering their time here. And the people that are involved in it are really passionate about it. So we're all really interested in reducing repair and improving lives through keeping things working and people able to use their things they've spent their hard-earned money on. So our goal, weather dependent, and while I'm talking about this, I will show some photos because I'm sure you all would love to see what this looks like. So our goal, weather dependent and of course pandemic dependent, is that we want to have 4 repair cafes. We've been doing them as close to monthly every 3rd Saturday as we can. Primarily outdoors, and that's definitely the preference with the current COVID-19 situation. So what we're asking for is $150 to go towards a pop-up tent for bright sun, a little bit of rain maybe, but also $350 towards providing volunteers with refreshments, snacks, you know, grab some bagels. So that is a pretty big thing for folks. You know, everyone's volunteering their time and we like to, you know, kind of make it a little bit worth their while and keep everyone happy and well fed. So this is our repair cafe we did last year. Got a little entry booth. Some folks working on some textiles. A lot of the stuff we're doing is clothing, backpacks, things of that sort. I worked on a stuffed animal that the little kid was so happy that we were able to make that repair. We got a drill, pulled it apart, reassembled it, got it working again. The sleeping bag I was talking about, the zipper wouldn't go, which makes it a pretty bad sleeping bag, which we were able to fix that. And of course, if you'd like more information, we do have a website, so laboratoryb.org/repair cafe. And we're also on Facebook and we post a lot of our event information there and photos of what these events have looked like when they're happening. So facebook.com/laboratoryb. So to reiterate, the total ask is $500, $150 of which is going to a pop-up tent and the rest is for 4 events for providing food and refreshments for volunteers. Our first event would be tentatively Saturday, April 24th. So later this month. And as everyone else has done, I'm happy to answer Q&A or any questions anyone has. Thank you for listening.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I believe we have one more, right, Liam?
Yep, Shelby Glass. She's got her hand raised.
Hey. Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby. I live in Ward 2 and for the past 8 years, and I am an orientation
We may have lost you, Shelby.
work with people who are blind and visually impaired. And so I proposed an idea for a mural created by people who are blind and visually impaired, and also including blind and visually impaired artists. And I have one here today who's going to speak after me. And so Walk Your Own Path is a project bringing visibility to the visually impaired community. It's the title of the mural. Walk Your Own Path is the idea is it's created by cane strokes and guide dog paw prints. So my thought is that we'll get 6 different blind visually impaired folks, and they will dip their cane in paint. And as they walk on the sidewalk, each person, they're a different height, they walk at a different speed, they have a different technique. And the path that they lead will each be different. And then I was hoping to get some guide dog paw prints in there too. And so together in this project, an orientation mobility instructor, artists who are visually impaired, cane and guide dog users will all collaborate to create a sidewalk mural depicting the different ways people travel and the unique tracks they imprint on their community. Along with this, I'm hoping to make 2 plaques commemorating the project, one in print and one in Braille. The project not only brings brightness and boldness and texture to the sidewalks, but it enriches the culture of the community too. Visually, the sidewalk or the mural will have different color cane strokes. I'm hoping that there'll be some texture to it if they're made really thick. And then the background will be black. So for people who are visually impaired, that contrast will really pop. And it'll bring this kind of unique abstract piece to the Old North End. I wanted to talk a little bit about like what this will also mean to have. I've talked to 2 of students that I've worked with who are visually impaired artists, and part of my project is hiring them and giving visibility, bringing visibility to artists, and giving them an opportunity to, you know, tell their story in the community. So a little bit about the project timeline. I've been speaking to Sangha Studio, the yoga studio in the one located in the Old North End, and they're interested in hosting this project in their space outside somewhere. But I also need to, you know, speak to the town to see if this is a suitable location. So part of the project, I imagine, whether or not it can be done by June 1st, I think we'll deal with, you know, whether the town allows it or not. But so that's the piece. I also need to recruit different blind and visually impaired people to participate in the project and create a schedule, and also order the plaques. I imagine doing that in the rest of April, and then in May, facilitating the project with the 2 artists and all the individuals, and then creating the finishing touches by the end of May and installing the plaque. I created a budget. I initially created one that was like $1,735. And then I recently edited it down to about $1,000, just, you know, recognizing that there's a lot of awesome projects. And the way I kind of took money out of the project is to pay, you know, for the orientation mobility instruction and the facilitation to decrease the amount that people get paid, though I do think it's important to pay people for their work, pay these artists for their work, and pay for coordination of the event. There's also money towards transportation because one of the challenges about the visually impaired community is that transportation is a huge limit. So acknowledging that, you know, people who are visually impaired are going to need rides. So being able to offer gift cards for that. And then supplies, brushes, rollers, a cane tip so that people don't get paint on theirs. For the plaques, some snacks for people. So yeah, I created a smaller budget for $1,000 in as an alternative. And I also wanted Megan to share a little bit about her perspective. So if she's ready, that would be great.
Right, we are sorry to interrupt you. We are sort of running short on time.
Oh, she's just going to talk for like 30 seconds
just
maximum. Thank you.
Yeah, really quick. Hi, I'm Megan. I go to St. Michael's and I'm an art and design major. And I was so excited when Shelby called me about this project because I've never seen myself or my community represented in a public art project before. And I think it would just bring a lot of visibility to the blind and visually impaired community here. And yeah, really quick, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Okie dokie. Liam, I don't believe we have anybody else, do we?
No, I think it's just the steering committee for the operations and outreach.
And we'll facilitate it. And I may be mistaken, but I believe the guidelines, which aren't necessarily clear, I realize, don't necessarily forbid paying people, but makes it a lot more complicated to pay individuals, because then the criteria that you use, the grant have to follow the city of Burlington's, which makes it a lot more complicated unless the individual is already an employee of the city. And those details, I believe the steering committee is trying to parse out all the nuances of it. But I did hear, I believe paying a band might be different, as that might be an entity, not an individual. But again, the steering committee, we are hard at work, or at least some of us are, not me necessarily, but trying to make sure we clarify all these nuances of the grant applications. That said, oops.
Patrick, can I just jump in really quick and let Shelby know that there's probably other avenues if for whatever reason this particular grant does not suit your, there are other things going on, especially with artists being asked to or being supported in, I'm going to say decorate, but I'm painting crosswalks, especially if they have something to do with like reflective paint. So if something doesn't pan out, I hope that you and I will have a conversation about this another time. Because Shelby, it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean.
The new grant cycle will start July 1st. So in case your grant doesn't quite meet the criteria this time, July 1st, the new grant cycle will start, and we hope to actually facilitate these in a more timely manner so people aren't forced to spend their grant in a short period of time. That said, you know, as this process goes forward, we as a steering committee will get better at facilitating it. So any questions for the grantees, Jessica?
Oh, yeah, before we jump into questions, I just wanted to say something about the steering committee's request too, just so folks can hear that as well. And so the steering committee is requesting $500 for two purposes. One, for signs that can go out around the neighborhood the week before the meeting to let folks know that the NPA meeting is happening and how to get connected, because one of our goals is to increase participation and to make these meetings more accessible to more people and to get more voices as part of these great conversations. And so the $500 request for the steering committee operations would be for coroplast signs to be printed locally here at Vantage Press, and then also for sound equipment for when we finally go back to in-person meetings at the Old North End Community Center. So that request is for $500. And I would just like to say that all these projects sound absolutely awesome. I wish that we had enough money to fully fund everybody, but we have, so there's $4,400 total to be allocated, and I'll turn it back over to Patrick and Liam to facilitate the next step of the process.
Liam, I believe will get any questions, and then we will allow people to participate in the poll, which will be our sort of method of voting on these grants. And it'll be anonymous, which is nice to some degree. So please keep in mind that some of the grants presented to us might not fit the criteria outlined by the city. And I apologize to those of you who have written grants that don't fit the criteria, that we did not facilitate the rules clearer to you prior to you making the effort, but it's a learning
I have
process.
a question.
Yes.
Are you allowed to like give gift cards as a payment?
We actually talked about that, and that is another complicated level of discussion. We talked about it last year when we were trying to spend our money right before COVID, city market. The city has a lot of criteria, and none of us are real policy wonks, except for Jess, perhaps more. And then Brian Pine, who isn't here, but he's a policy wonk as well.
It is possible for gift card, Shelby. It's just yeah, Patrick is right. It is a bit of a different process. But yeah, just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I guess if I had shared my screen, mine all says gift cards, if that makes a difference. Just wanted to share on my budget.
Yeah. It does make a difference.
Okay.
But again, we can't necessarily pay people. I may be wrong, but Liam, you might know a little bit more. I'm fairly certain that is the case.
Yep. I mean, basically, it goes through a vendor process. So that's what they're talking about with like individuals versus like an established sort of thing that would be the vendor. It's not impossible. It's just we would just need to sort of talk to Kirsten from CEDO regarding that. So it's not enough that you should have hope that your proposals will go through and all that stuff. It's something that can be worked out most likely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Liam, for that clarification. And then we had one more question.
Patrick, I have a clarification. So it seems like these grants are really about how things in the community can promote the NPA. Am I wrong about that? They seem inextricably linked to supporting or promoting NPA involvement, awareness. Okay.
Yeah, I believe Jess has the answer.
And yes, and so the grants are intended to promote NPA engagement and involvement and to build community. And so the steering committee has chosen to interpret this fairly broadly. And we've done this over the past couple of previous steering committees, and the current steering committee have done this fairly broadly, where we've encouraged folks to, or we've agreed that the funding should prioritize community engagement and involvement, should benefit the residents of the wards 2 and 3 in an equitable manner. So making sure that everyone has access to however this money is spent, and to promote the NPA itself. So those are our goals.
Mm-hmm. And please keep in mind that there are a lot of volunteers. So one of the ways I'd like to dissuade people from paying individuals is remember that this is a community of volunteers, and the NPAs are volunteer based. All right, are we going to, any other questions?
Yeah, Megan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. So Jess, just to clarify, the $4,400 that's available is for both wards. So each ward is getting half of that. Is that right?
Well, yes, although we can decide, it doesn't have to be voting that Ward 2 people. Sorry, we have some wards that originate, some grants that originated from Ward 2 residents and some grants that originated from Ward 3 residents. And Liam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that only Ward 2 people can vote on the Ward 2 grants and only Ward 3 people can vote on the Ward 3 grants, but I may be wrong.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we're voting as a community on the total amount. And I had a quick question for 2 of the grantees, if I could ask. Would that be okay? Or 2 of the applicants? Patrick, is it okay?
Yes,
if I ask a couple
feel free to
questions?
jump in. Yep, yep.
So my first question is for Kenroy. Kenroy, thank you so much. It sounds like an awesome event. It just really sounds amazing, and just what we need after a year of pandemic. My question for you is related to the total budget and whether you have any other funding sources. So just looking at the total amount that we have to allocate, it's unlikely that we're not going to be able to fully fund all the applicants. And so this is a question that I would pose openly to all the applicants, but to you first, Kenroy. Do you have any other funding sources for this project? And would a smaller grant from the NPA still make it possible for this event to happen?
So thank you for that question, and also just for having me here. And so the idea of the multicultural event was something that is supposed to efficiently bring the community together. And because I was a part of the facilitation for the audio for the NPA meetings, I wanted to also include the community highlight process to kind of like shout out a lot of things that's going on in the community. So in my thought process, it is purposed to be an extension of the awareness for the NPA. With that, I do throw in a lot of my resources. So the items that I want to use as an engagement, musical engagement item, because I'm a musician, that one specific item is useful in perpetuity. I do have the endeavor to source as much personally as possible. I just understand that the first one is usually a big kind of a jump. So I'm appreciative of any assistance, and as accommodating to the budget as I can get the assistance to. I'm enthused, but I am committed to put as much as my internal resources. I'm also going out for additional grants. So is the group that I'm highlighting, A2VT, Africa to Vermont. So just in reference to that, the paying people part of things, that that organization is in reference to it's receiving of grants itself, I guess, if you understand that. So if anything can be trimmed as far as trimming the fact, I am more than welcome to be as efficient to the community as I want to be with this event. And just know that every accountable dollar that I put there is in reference to, for instance, hosting every member who is here presenting is an invited member to the Multicultural Festival, because everything that is being presented here so far, I'm like, that is a booth right there, that not even booth, but a area, because this is supposed to be an open area where everyone can kind of go and check out stuff, and I have a lot of technological.
Sorry to cut you off, but we're running out. We're already way over.
Sorry, I do get along with it. I hope that answers your question. I am willing to cut the fat if it's.
Yep, great, and look for other funding if we can't fully fund you. Shelby, did you have a response to that?
Could I do that as well? Are you saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or do you have any other funding sources? Yes, great.
Oh, I don't have any funding sources at the moment, but I understand, like, if people can't get paid, this is more of like a passion project that I would like to see happen, and if whatever support I can get would be awesome.
Thank you. AJ, do you understood the gravity of that question there?
Yeah, I mean, to put on something like this is really a $10,000 to $20,000 event. We're trying to do it as cost effectively as we can. And really, it's kind of an open thing for anybody in the community. We're trying to figure out, as a community and as a bunch of tech citizen scientists, what can we do and what does the community need? So any input that people have would be excellent, and any resources we have. What's nice about the MOU that was signed that we'll announce on Earth Day is you're looking at developers, you're looking at the university, you're looking at nonprofits. Lab B is part of that collaborative. I'm sorry, Aaron, that I forgot to bring up Lab B because they're one of the contributors that's to this. And we're just trying to figure out what we need to do to get this kicked off on the community side, right?
Okay.
Not this. So we appreciate
Thank
any
you. And Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, so we do have some alternate funding sources through Laboratory B, which is donation and member sponsored. Really, if we scale down this $500 proposal, it may mean, we don't do the pop-up tent, or we're scaling down the amount of food, but really any amount helps.
Okay, great. So those in attendance, Liam, I didn't forget anybody, did I? I'm sorry, I'm doing way too many things.
Yeah.
Besides poor Brian Perkins.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, the Old North End Neighborhood Band is going to happen, and it has been happening for 5 years. Big proven track record, and it's going to keep rolling. It would be nice to have the support of the NPA, but it certainly will happen in one shape or another, without if partial funding or whatever. So whatever happens, happens.
Great, and hopefully anybody that does not get fully funded this time will reapply next funding cycle. Apply early and often, right? So if everyone would like to go to the poll, that is going to be our
Yeah, everyone should be able to click on the polling down at the bottom, and we'll just keep this. This is the Ward 2 budget proposals right now. You can go ahead and vote for full funding, partial funding, or no funding. And then
is not on there, but I guess it will be the next one.
Yes,
Well,
so we have 2 separate polls that we'll do.
Patrick, if you're on an iPad, I don't see where the poll thing is.
Oh, Liam, it should be all the way at the bottom in the center, but I'm not on an iPad either.
All the controls are at the top, and I see the Q&A thing, but I don't see a poll thing.
Is there a way to scroll to the left or right in those options, Barbara? Like a little arrow or something? I'm not entirely. I haven't used it on an iPad yet, so I'm not sure.
Not really. There is something called share contact. There's let's see if I click that, what happens.
No
poll there either.
I know when I just did mine, it was Ward 2. Do we have to pick our ward poll? I mean, like when I clicked on it.
We have a second poll I just separated them between the Ward 2 and the Ward 3, so that when the information gets back to me, it's like easier for me to sort of to see what is what. And so in a second, after we finish this poll, we'll go to the Ward 3 poll. So I just want to check in. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm in
wait a minute. I found something. It says poll in progress. What do you know? Okay, good.
I'm in the middle of getting in a lot of hot water right now because we missed community dinner. We've missed community dinner, and on top of that, I've missed the whole funding of community dinner. But people apparently love it, regardless of whether we hit it or not, because they're voting for it. But Janet is going to.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Hi, I got here late because I was doing community dinner, so I didn't know what got talked about, but I can see that it just has like a TVA down for community dinner on it. So thanks to everyone who came out tonight and got the Ethiopian takeout. It was awesome. And so I was a little late getting to the meeting because we were getting it out to everybody, but we are missing some things from our kitchen, unfortunately, over the past year. And so I put together a budget and submitted it to replace some of the things because we haven't been in the kitchen for over a year. And a lot of some of the pots and pans and silverware and things like that have been missing. And so I just noticed there was no money on there. We are hoping to do another takeout meal next month. We'll see how things go with COVID, and maybe we'll cook it ourselves, and then hoping to have perhaps something outside when it's feasible to do that. So but the budget that I had submitted was for $1,700 to replace the pots and pans and silverware and mugs and a whole bunch of things that we are not available to us at the moment. And we don't have another funding source, but we, you know, we can be resourceful trying to get some of those things if we can other ways. So yeah. So, but there's a lot of great things out there too to be voting for. So, but we're hoping to be back up and running next year.
Thank you, Janet. And I'm sorry that the total didn't get on to here. We didn't see that total amount. But so 1,700 is what I put on the spreadsheet that we're working from.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a question. It sounds like there was a lot of basically stuff stolen. That's what I'm reading into this. And what can be done so that doesn't happen every year?
Well, we weren't there for a year, Barbara. So unfortunately, like during COVID, and so our stuff was still there. And there were some groups, I think, that maybe forgot to bring things back, and it wasn't supervised by us. And then some of it is that the space, the people that run the space are no longer running the space. And so some of the silverware and the glasses and things like that were provided by another group that is no longer there. So so that stuff wasn't necessarily stolen, but we were like sharing things, but they're no longer available to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And by group, we mean person.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so there's like, so we need silverware for, 200 people, and, we need silverware. We're like, because some people use more than one spoon in a dinner. And then we need, bowls.
Unfortunately, that's going to be difficult for us to vote on now, but we should be able to fund that and then facilitate another grant application in July if community dinner doesn't get fully funded this time, because we probably won't need it until then when we go back to full capacity. And Tony and Kevin both have their hands up quickly.
Just exactly my suggestion that on July 1, we can, assuming the city council is gracious and gives us another $2,500 award, that should be a first on our agenda, is to deal with the needs of the community dinner. We can't guarantee that.
That's totally great. That would be fine, because we wouldn't probably need it till next fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Jess.
Oh, I think Kevin had his hand up first.
Oh, sorry. The poll is blocking Kevin on my screen.
Yeah, all good. I'm actually all set. I couldn't see as a co-host. I couldn't vote in the poll. I was just asking if that was intentional or not, but it just appeared. It just changed, so I'm good.
And the only thing I would add, and I would just propose this to my fellow steering committee members, is that for our operations and outreach proposal of $500, we could also hold that until July 1st too, if there's consensus among us, so that would free up more money for this round.
Agreed.
I see Tony agreeing.
I agree as
Barbara,
well.
Patrick.
I just want to let you know, if the ramble is going to happen, we're going to come in hard July 1st.
Okay.
So
leave
some wiggle room. Leave some wiggle room for rambling.
So if everyone has voted, we're trying to move it along to our wonderful representatives.
Great. Let's we just have to
the second one.
Yes, that Ward 3. So I'm going to end the poll. Anybody can put their hand up if they haven't voted yet. 5, 4, going once. Awesome. And let's do poll number 2. Excuse me. There we go. And launch poll. All right. So now you should see Repair Cafe, Wireless Sensor Network, Vermont Multicultural Festival, again with the NPA operations and outreach for Ward 3 this time, and that community dinner as well. And I'll give this 60 seconds. And then I'll check in.
So we shouldn't vote on the community dinner now?
We don't have to.
You don't have to.
And
It's fine.
remember, the way that this is structured, there's no actually a dollar amount. When it says partial funding, I think it's going to be us, the steering committee, which are going to have to interpret what partial means and do our best to represent the will of the voting public. being
Right.
you all at the Zoom meeting.
I'm not good at this, but my suggestion is if partial funding is the consensus, that we do a percentage, of the money we have and give it proportionally to each proposal.
We will do our best to represent the percentages voted on and equate that to actual numbers.
Great, and that's been a minute. Has everyone voted? Anybody can sort of unmute and let me know if they need more time.
Great.
Awesome. That sounds great. Okay, I'll end that poll and we should be good.
And we will have the results after tabulated, not during this meeting, of course, and discuss it and let everybody who has applied for the grant know. And then I guess we'll, as a steering committee, did I miss a discussion about how we were going to announce this? We didn't. So we will announce to the NPA next month and hopefully sooner on FPF. And those of you who have so graciously spent a lot of time putting those grant applications together, your time, if you didn't get fully funded, your time was not wasted. You're actually setting a lot of precedent for future grant applications. Thank you. And Barbara.
Are not the results available automatically?
We're going to have to look at the results and then divvy up the money accordingly, like you suggested.
But people will know if they got partial funding or funding.
Yes, we're going to try at a reasonable timeline, hopefully by the weekend. I don't want to. Okay. Thank you all, grant applicants. That was really great to hear. Again, don't forget community dinner. We'll start back up, and then the NPA meetings, we hope to see everybody at them when they're not on Zoom, as you guys are part of our valuable community. We're going to move right along to our wonderful elected officials, which I think some of them are sleeping. Wake them up. Oh, and anybody, do we have a pattern by which we'd like to go? Councilors, top to bottom, Montpelier to city, or city to Montpelier? I see Emma here and Max and of course Stephen is here. Stephen.
Gene Wallace.
And Jeannie, of course, Jeannie. Emma, would you like to start?
I would love to, because I'm actually running another Zoom for another legislative thing. I am such a dork, so I would appreciate just giving a very quick 2 to 3 minute update if I can. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. I'm a state representative for Chittenden 6-2, which is the, I like this phrase now, the west side of the old North End and the southern portion of the new North End. And I just would like to just give a little bit of an update. And if I don't touch on a topic that you're interested in, always a free or open invitation to email me or give me a call. I'll put my contact information in when I'm done speaking. So the biggest and largest issue by far that I've heard from constituents and neighbors about, and frankly around the state, is the pension issue for state employees and teachers. I actually see a couple of folks who were on a meeting with me last night around the state of affairs, frankly, with the pensions. So if folks haven't been following it, there has been, I think, a false narrative put out there that there is an emergency, that the funds for state employees and teachers are on the brink of either bankruptcy or in dire straits. And that's actually quite damaging to the policy problem that we have in front of us, which is that there is an underfunded liability issue. However, it is not new. It didn't happen overnight, and it is not the only public pension systems that have underfunded liability issues. So I've been working with the other progressive House members and a few other of our allies who are more progressive leaning Democrats to really point out a different way, that we have to slow down. We have to do good policy making by considering all the options, including how we got here. And the event I had last night, I went into much greater detail, but the short version is there's been a lot of years of underfunding in the 90s in particular. There's been a few years of that underfunding, meaning the state wasn't putting in its required, really recommended contributions, like a mortgage, right? Not doing your full mortgage payment every year. And that was because the fund looked pretty healthy when the economy was booming and doing pretty well during portions of the last 30 or so years. That combined with some big demographic changes where there's retirees are living longer, which is a good thing. And the size of the teacher population, the state employee population shrinking, it just makes that and a few other factors just are making a combination of factors, which has put us in a place where we have a funding issue. So right now, because a lot of folks, including people here in Burlington, have spoken out strongly and firmly that the original proposals put out by House leadership were not acceptable, and they were not acceptable because they put the burden of figuring out the cost on workers. So getting people who are currently teachers and currently state employees to pay more for less pension benefits, basically, to put it shortly. Because folks spoke out about it, the House leadership has sort of cooled their heels a bit around advancing the proposals for now, and are moving more towards a direction of instituting a task force to look at all the complexities of the pension, the two pension systems over the summer into the fall. I want to be clear that we're not out of the woods. It's not like this issue's over. I'm a little worried that the proposals that were introduced just a couple of weeks ago are simply going to come back basically in some slightly modified way at the end of the summer and fall as we go into the next session. And so this is one to really keep an eye on, to make sure that we're keeping the promise to folks who went into public service. No one gets rich in these jobs. And to make sure that we're doing right by these folks is really important to me. So I will be keeping an eye on that. I can go into way more detail on that so people can be in touch if they wish to. We've done a couple other big bills. I don't know if Selena's on here tonight. If she's not, Selena Colburn has been a longtime leader, and just on the floor today, we passed a big piece of legislation to allow more access to folks who are struggling with opioid addiction issues. I'm not the expert on this. I'm very new to this topic, but it just passed today. This is a bill that got caught up in the COVID issues last session. It just passed the House. It will provide access to folks who are struggling with addiction and need, I'm totally so tired tonight. I'm not remembering the, it's not Narcan, it's, oh God, I can't, maybe someone can help me out here. But it's a big bill that Selena has been a major leader on. So just, you can look that up, and maybe Max, you're gonna give me the term that I can't think of.
Buprenorphine.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is that bill and that issue. There's a very emotional debate on the floor today, but that has passed, and it will go to third reading and then to the Senate. So let's see, pensions, and what was the other thing I was going to say? The other piece I'll just flag, because I think, folks in the Old North End in particular might have been paying attention to the bill that Representative Taylor Small was leading on, which was the Gay Trans Panic Defense Bill. It is in the Senate right now, but it is struggling to get out of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And the short of that bill is basically that it would limit the ability of a defendant to use as part of their criminal defense the fact that someone's either perceived or real sexual identity or gender identity was the reason why they committed their criminal offense against the victim, basically. And so this bill passed pretty handily through the House, and it's getting mucked up in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. So this is a bill folks have been following. It's H128. I would encourage you to reach out to senators on the Judiciary Committee to make sure that it passes through, so that we can have that protection for LGBTQ2+ members of Vermont, community members, to have that protection and make sure that defendants are not allowed to use that in any form of their defense when they they commit a criminal offense. So I'm happy to take questions. I'll hang on for a little bit more and check out the chat, but I'll put my contact information in. That was a little scattered because I'm sorry, I'm running 2 meetings at once tonight, but I appreciate everyone, and you can be in touch, and I'm happy to talk about unemployment and any other issue, childcare, what of the other issues that we've been touching on this session. Thank you.
Thanks. Max, would you want to jump in next?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, good to be back with everyone. This week we had our swearing in of the new counselor and the 3 re-elected counselor, new counselor being Mark Barlow up in the New North End, our city councilor here for the Central District, Perry Freeman was sworn in again, as well as Jack Hansen and Joan Shannon in the South District. We also had the Mayor's State of the City address, which, if you didn't see coverage on, was focused pretty squarely on racial justice issues in the city. I think, I think the mayor set some good intentions, but I think we've heard, to be quite honest, some good game in the past, and we haven't seen that necessarily lived up to. So I see what I've been saying is that I see the council's role is really holding him accountable to what he said in that, whether it be, some of the commitments around public safety, commitments around increasing Black home ownership in our city. I mean, there are some really just stark statistics out there, like that only 18 homes in the city of Burlington are Black owned. I mean, it's just there's just some really outrageous trends here in our city that we know we need to deal with. And I think that with, the intentions having been set in the speech, that our role, as a community is really to hold the mayor to account on these, because again, we have seen things, come in the past, like the declaration of a public health emergency last summer come forward, and then not see enough progress on a number of these fronts. And that's kind of what we're looking at as we head into this next council. I'm going to be leading the council again as the council president, as I was reelected unanimously for that position. And our other councilor, Councilor Pine, is also going to serve on the Board of Finance as well, because that's the other piece that gets selected on the organization day is our Board of Finance. And so this Monday for our first Board of Finance meeting of the new session, we're going to be talking, at least beginning a discussion of how we're going to, how the budget sessions and the budget process will play out. This is sort of the first kind of go at it. I think the mayor said that we'll have a more substantive kind of idea of what exactly is going to happen with that process over the course of May and June. For folks, point of reference, though, this budget is going to, I think, look very different than prior budgets in the sense, in the sense that we have a tremendous infusion of federal assistance, 27 million, in fact, in federal assistance, and that's going to allow us to not only restore some of the funding that was cut in our last budget, whether it be professional development for staff or seasonal positions, but also to think about some other programming for the city. And specifically thinking about how we might position ourselves going forward. I think that it's exciting to have these opportunities, and it's certainly a relief to not have to be thinking about making really painful cuts. So for me, it's really going to be about trying to create an inclusive budget process that really kind of goes beyond what we did last year, which was, I felt, very kind of limited in the sense that, it was a moving target. And so we were kind of just trying to really get a budget passed and also really respond to the community demands that were being made with regard specifically to public safety funding. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more of an intentional process this year that allows for significant community input, and certainly would love to come back to the NPA for this, and love to include thoughts that NPA folks have on attendees have around budget priorities. And then for this council meeting, on Monday, we're going to be dealing with a couple of different issues. We'll start off with a presentation on the city's progress around net zero and becoming a net zero city by 2030. So we'll hear a report from the electric department. We have a final passage of an ordinance mandating weatherization of rental units in our city. So this is really requiring landlords to invest in their properties and make them more efficient. We'll also be approving a construction contract for the Shelburne Street roundabout down in the south end. So that'll be hopefully moving forward this summer. Yeah, I know, Tony, I thought of you when I heard about that. When I was approving the agenda today, I saw that on there. I said, this is going on deliberative. This is too good. We're going to put this on deliberative. We won't put this on consent because I want to make sure that we get a chance to hear about it. But it should be exciting. Should deal with some of the real safety issues down there. And then we also have the police commission's asking for some funding to work with a police oversight body, NACOL, and I forget what that acronym stands for, but they do police oversight advising, and so there's a contract on that. And then I think those are kind of the major kind of substantive items. I'm trying to think, there's a couple other concession contracts and other things like that on the agenda for this meeting. I think this usually tends to be kind of one of those meetings coming out of the organization where you start to see things really ramp up over the course of April, and I think we'll start to see that more so later this month and then into next. So that's just a couple things that the council has going. And then the other piece is also that I'm personally working on is just committee assignments, because with each new council, you have to assign committees. So I'm working on getting councilors assigned to their committees. I've asked them all for their preferences, and hopefully I'll get them this week and then be able to start laying people out into their different committees and making those assignments. So exciting stuff. And and one last thing I just want to mention is that the work that I see with the council kind of going forward, and specifically as the council president, is working through and thinking about how we're going to transition back into it in person, and how we'll be able to bring and what elements of remote meetings we like and that we'd like to continue with, and then specifically how we can facilitate that technology going forward. Because I think there's been some real benefits and some real increases in participation that we've seen at the council that I don't want to lose at all. And so hopefully we'll be able to work through that. So I've asked the Chief Innovation Officer to give me an idea of what their timeline is for when we might potentially go back to having in-person meetings at Contoys. And it's going to be exciting because Contoys and City Hall in general has gotten a ton of work done to it. They've insulated the whole attic, so it's going to be much more comfortable. They're updating the sound system in Contoys. It's going to be fantastic. And so I'm excited about that. I think once we figure out the timeline for getting back in person, we'll then have to have some process as the council, and certainly engaging the public in work sessions and otherwise, just to make sure that we're getting some feedback on what folks liked, what they didn't like, and then how they might see things like, for instance, public comment going forward, and what an appropriate balance might be between in-person commenters and then remote commenters. So those are just a couple of the different things that are going on at council right now, and then some of the other things that are on my mind as we get towards having more in-person kind of interactions as a council.
Excellent. Thank you, Max. Any quick questions for Max? But I really am hesitating to even asking because it is almost 10 minutes to 9. I would love it if we could move over to our school board. And I noticed Brian showed up late, but Brian, you don't have to say anything. You can just hide and welcome. Unless you want, you are a public official. But Jeannie and Stephen, you guys can jump in when you'd like.
Hi, Jeannie, and everyone else. I'm Steve Carey, and I'm the commissioner for Ward 2. And, you know, as usual, there's a lot going on, and I could just give you some tidbits tonight. One is that, you know, about the COVID recovery plan that's in the works right now. It will be published soon. Stephanie Phillips is the director in charge of that. The focus is going to be on social emotional recovery, academic recovery, and community involvement, engagement in the recovery issue. Last night at the board meeting, or it was Tuesday night at the board meeting, we passed a resolution that was based on the task force recommendation, that maybe Jeannie wants to talk about that a little bit. Want to just mention that, Jeannie?
I'd love to jump in. So there's a task force formed to evaluate the role of student resource officers, and they presented an amazing, I mean, obviously, a ton of time and work went into, and by the way, volunteers from different facets of our community came together, and I want to also say representations of our community in many facets came together and essentially evaluated the present and the future prospects of having student resource officers in the district, and came up with tons of recommendations that were more about the spirit in how to best serve our kids. The above all, what it refers to is implementing or not implementing, but furthering restorative practices, everything about a holistic approach to kids. But concretely, I am really happy to report that the district will no longer have armed police officers in our schools. There will only be one police officer associated with this program. They will be based on, you know, at the BPD on North Ave. And the only times that this police officer will be present in the district is routine scheduled drills and stuff like that. And I believe that even at those times, their uniform and presentation will be more approachable, less intimidating. With that said, I also want to acknowledge that continuing a relationship with the BPD is obviously going to benefit our children in a way that, and I don't necessarily mean that this is good for our kids, but I want to let you know it's really good. This is my personal opinion. It's really good for police officers to understand our students and learn better how to serve them. So having some sort of a link, having communication, not just about our population, student population, but also, of course, there's going to be things going on in our community that's going to be linked to our kids. And it would be awesome if, people who are serving them get the heads up. There was an incident on their street, or maybe their family is involved with some sort of legal situation that's obviously going to impact this kid. So yeah, but it's almost a whole year that we have been working as a community to resolve this issue. And I am so impressed with how comprehensive, inclusive, and thorough it all turned out. So if we can take how that happened and extrapolate it to other processes in our city, I highly recommend it.
And you should take a look at it at some point, and specifically at number 8, which is what the board adopted of the resolutions from that committee. So it really was an extensive and thorough report, and there's a lot in there, and there's a lot defining the movement in the next couple of years in Burlington School District too. So I would mention that James Kiefer, who's the assistant principal or temporary principal at EMS, was promoted last night to full principal, and that there are principal candidates for BHS, and there's a public forum and interview session on April 15th from 6 to 7:30 that you should participate in. You should listen to the 3 candidates, how they answer the questions, and then give your feedback on them, because public communication and public feedback is very highly valued by the superintendent. So I would highly recommend that you tune into that brief forum on, again, April 15th at 6 o'clock. And I wish I could give good news about the high school. We're downtown and things are moving there. Kids are okay with it. There's complaints about the lighting and the noise. We haven't really opened up in terms of coming and going, because kids have to still come into school and stay there even if they don't have classes. So it's a little confining, and there will be work that will be done in the interior of the building to make it more accommodating for September. But it's going okay. The kids are happy to be there with their peers, well, from whom they've been isolated for so long. But anyway, I wish I could give good news about the high school out on North Avenue, but we are still awaiting testing for the soil and the remediation of the soil issue and the pavement slab that was poured there. That is on the agenda for next Tuesday's board meeting. So we will find out more about it as a board, and you can find out more about it by looking at the minutes or paying attention for that board meeting. It's on Tuesday, the 13th, April 13th.
Stephen, you want to talk about S13 and the coalition work?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a school board report, but many of your school board commissioners have been involved in a coalition trying to change the legislative minds that decide how our educational funds are dispersed based on a pupil weight. Hopefully this isn't one of those I'm talking into the abyss of, but basically this is how your taxpayer dollars are spent and why your educational tax is what it is. And right now there's a S13 has gone from the Senate to the House, and people from all over Vermont are really vying for S13 to be adopted by the House. And
Yeah, that's a really important legislative issue right now.
It's actually super pertinent. Like we
Yeah.
need to get people to get on board with this and advocate for this and do whatever they can.
And we've heard specifically from our representatives, and they support it. It's just getting it through, because it means fairer funding for everyone in the state, and Burlington would benefit greatly from that. It's the per pupil weighting study that we've talked about before, but pay attention to that and support that all you can, because it will make a huge difference in funding for Burlington students.
And just for bare bones information, this idea of a pupil weighted funding system is based on equitable education.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but it turns out for 20 years, they just didn't have an idea of actually what it would cost to educate, especially kids living in poverty and kids learning English as a second language. So you can imagine that our district has not gotten the funds that it should, or our city has not gotten for over 20 years. So this is huge, guys. This is gonna.
The funding formula is really in error, and it's been shown to be in error, and that's what people agree to. It's trying to get that formula to be redesigned, because nothing is easy when it comes to the way we fund schools in Vermont. But it's a.
I'm also gonna cut to the chase. It's not easy to convince the people who have been well funded, don't have kids as much in need, to give up their current situation. That is also part of the problem.
Yeah.
As you know, they also have representatives that, let's just say, represent.
But okay, so I want to just mention what Emma was talking about a little bit earlier, because this is another really big issue that's coming down the pike. And quite frankly, I am one of those retired teachers that, the state would wish I would just drop dead and it would save a lot of money. But anyway, this issue of the teachers and state employees' retirement is a big issue. And I'm happy that Emma says that, there is money to fund it right now. And we shouldn't go overboard and being panicked about it. But the reality is, and I don't know if people know this, this represents 18 years of underfunding by the legislature. So teachers never had, and state employees never had the opportunity not to participate, but the state went on for 18 years and didn't fund it. I had a math teacher, we don't even know what the numbers are that the state should have been participating in yearly. That is a mystery to everyone. I had a math teacher friend of mine guesstimate what it is, and it comes out to be about 900 million of underfunding over the past 18 years. And that's probably a lowball estimate, but I'm not complaining. I just want to point out that it's a very serious issue in terms of recruitment of teachers, hiring, retention. It's going to have huge budget implications because the proposal is that teachers work longer and state employees work longer and longer, and they typically are at the end of the pay scale. And most importantly, it really affects morale. I mean, if you paid attention to any of the testimony in the last couple of weeks, the morale was really, really low as a result of that proposal that was really a slap in the face of the teachers who have worked so hard, and state employees who have worked so hard during COVID. But anyway, I just want to point that out there. It is a serious issue. It's almost as if we're kicking the can down the road again by postponing it, but it does represent ongoing underfunding. And pay attention to that. It needs to be remedied, and I don't think it needs to be remedied on the backs of the working people in the state. There are other ways to fund it. And we've heard this before, you'll hear it again, but it's a serious issue. And I'm glad that Emma, who I highly respect, and I know she knows what's going on, she has a really good perspective of it all, because she's been involved in education for decades. And so I trust her judgment, but I am saying that it's a very serious issue for every school in the state. And you can hear it in the voices of some of the testimonies.
Thank you, Steve. It is 9 o'clock.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, I couldn't personally appreciate everything you're saying, but it is, considering it is late and the numbers are dwindling here.
All right, well, that's it. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
very much, though, and Jeannie as well.
Welcome.
Max and anybody else who might be out there. I would like to propose we close this meeting if everybody is okay, unless there's another item that I have missed.
I just want to ask the board members a question. I don't know if there have been any COVID cases at the high school yet, but I'll pose the same question with cases rising in Chittenden County and being spread by young people, often asymptomatic young people. Has there been any more thought to testing the students weekly before before there is an outbreak, which might happen? And also, is there any plan to encourage them to get vaccinated when the 16 and up age band opens?
Stephen, you're muted.
I was just going to say, Barbara, that that kids are tested every single day when they arrive. And they don't leave and come back. So that's one way. I mean, they're tested every single day.
They're not tested. They do a
temperature check.
They do a temperature test, and they do a self assessment before they leave home.
Asymptomatic. What don't people understand about asymptomatic spread of the virus?
Yeah, I know of no plans that deal with that. And yes, in Chittenden County, the numbers are up. They're higher than they were when we shut down the schools. There's a state, almost a mandate to get kids back in school. I believe that the superintendents are responding to that mandate. Who knows what's going to happen after April vacation, but the news is that there will be more students in the schools after April vacation. The distance, the 6 feet distance between them has been reduced to 3. So there are going to be more students in classrooms very soon. And it's a concern of mine. It's a concern of everyone. But
we have tests in the count. I mean, we have lots and lots of easy tests. It's easy to test them every week. Easy.
I've
heard of no plans to do the tests in the school.
Well, there have been conversations. Steve and I'll text you later and remind you of a portion of our update that we got about trying to generate buy-in with more testing of students, actual testing. you know, right now we are following the state lead, which is as many people as possible that are more vulnerable if they get COVID will be affected in a super negative way. The idea is like vaccinate the vulnerable, therefore the death rate, the implications of coronavirus. Well, and I know, Barbara, that doesn't necessarily, I get it. It doesn't sit well. And I'm also one of those people that's fully vaccinated and feeling much more at ease with dealing with my teenage students and just regular life now. At the same time, realizing that I could still be a carrier.
Tony,
I'm sorry, Tony.
Okay, UVM students are tested twice a week, including those who are probably 18 and 19. I agree with Barbara. I don't understand why.
I believe
high school.
this issue has come up several times, and both Jeannie and Stephen have went into not great detail, but a lot of detail on the reasons and the complications around it. But it is getting late, and Barbara, I don't want to.
No, it's okay. It's not for me. It's for the student. The teachers will be vaccinated. Yeah. I'm vaccinated, but the students are vulnerable. Why wait for an outbreak? Why wait for a kid to die maybe? Test them, for God's sake.
Yep.
Once
I'm sure they've
we
heard
live
you.
in a free country and we can't make people do things. We can encourage them. We can give them reasons to buy into this. But as a district, you cannot mandate as a public entity.
You mandate vaccinations, don't you, for kids before they can come to school?
I don't want to get into the weeds here. We appreciate it. It is getting late.
I said my piece. Do what
No,
you
Barbara. Yeah, it is important. I believe that we, everyone heard and appreciate how important it is. That said, it is getting late. Thank you all for coming, and next month will hopefully be our last month without having to go over to our wonderful place at St. Joe's School, hopefully for an outdoor event, NPA meeting, and hopefully possibly a community dinner if we can possibly think of ways to pull it off in a comfortable and safe manner. Is it okay to close it? I think Liam's probably asleep.
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you,
to see you
everyone.
all. Thank you.
Good
Bye
night.
now.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Liam.
It's all Liam. Bye-bye.